Well, as you can see from this, it's a case of trapping from home this evening. It's also a case of making the most of the perfect moth trapping conditions which we have this evening. It's overcast, it's warm at the moment, and we're well after midnight now. It's still 22 degrees centigrade. I'm far better out here trapping moths than trying to sleep in a stuffy bedroom. So that's the plan. This might be, for me, a long session, and there's plenty of moths already in. Well, the plan was this evening to have quite a relaxing moth trapping session at home. The conditions, though, are absolutely perfect. Very warm this evening. It's humid as well. It's been very hot during the day. Consequently, the trap's actually busier than when I trapped recently at the Sherwood Forest Country Park. Maybe this isn't going to be as quiet a night as I was anticipating. Well, here's the aptly named brimstone moth. You couldn't get a more sulphur yellow than this if you tried. This is one of those moths that surprises people with its coloration, yet it's a very common species, soon taken at light in any urban garden. I remember looking for the larvae of these on hawthorn when I was young in the 1980s. They were quite easy to find then, or if you caught a female, the females laid quite easily, even in a jam jar. But it's an absolutely beautiful moth. I do love brimstones, but they're one of those moths again that suffer from being common. It's amazing, no matter how beautiful a moth is, if it's common, you barely give it a second glance. To most moth trappers, just a brimstone, but it's a beautiful moth. The trap's only been on 20 minutes or so, and there's a good number of species. We've got several straw dots in, the usual suspects. Who knows what could turn up though tonight? It looks like there'll be a decent trap list, so we'll see what happens. Here's a extremely fresh common emerald, another aptly named species. This does look absolutely immaculate. So there's another fairly common species, one if you trap it in the garden you'll soon get. It's another of those moths that surprises people with its coloration, once again proving just how colourful moths can be. It's so easy to miss moths that have come in, even though you've been sat watching. Moths can slip in so easily, undetected. I don't use the net too much, unless I know that there's a need to net it, and that it's something quite special or potentially special. Nothing in that category at the moment. Here again is another example of a lovely moth, and this is Anania coronata. If I remember right, the larvae of this species feed on elder. It's common, I get it regularly here, and in fact there's 3 of these already in this evening. It's one of the pyralid moths that are typically characterised by being quite leggy moths, but extremely variable in shape. But it's quite uniquely patterned. There are few other moths with any kind of markings remotely similar to this, but it's a nice species and one to look out for. As you can see, there's quite a lot of activity around the trap. The number of moths coming in has steadied down, and it's usually once you get into the early morning hours, that's when your most sought after species turn up. There might be fewer moths coming in after that initial early evening flurry, but what tends to come in after, say, 1 AM tends to be more quality than quantity. But weather conditions absolutely perfect. They're perfect for migration, so hopefully we might drag a few migrant moths into the county in the next few days. If one turns up here, I'll be more than happy. Well, it's just around 1 AM and an old lady's just dropped in. Unfortunately, it's a moth called an old lady. First one of the year. I normally associate old lady moths with late summer and into the autumn. They're huge moths, almost like bats sometimes when they come in and fly around the light. It's just over there at the moment. They tend not to come directly into the light, but they'll fly around. But they are large. Here she comes. There she is. That's a willow beauty. That's one I've saved for later. There's now 3 elephant hawk moths in. No new species for the garden, unfortunately, yet. Now, small elephant hawk moth would be new for the garden. That's one species which continues to elude us here. But we are on about 50 species already, and that's pretty decent going. And as you can see, when you get hot, humid nights like this, they are great. It's not just moths that fly, but an array of beetles, all sorts, bugs, especially shield bugs will turn up. You'll often get water beetles and water boatmen as well. People are always surprised. You can have masses of water boatmen on favourable nights. It's nice when you get that hot or warm and humid, especially if it's been drizzling or it's quite damp. Those nights they can be heaving with an array of stuff. It's not just moths that are attracted to bright lights. And here another fabulous example that moths aren't just brown and dull. This is anything but. This is the large elephant hawk moth, a mix of olive greens and Barbie pinks. It's also a common species and quite often found in the larval form, usually when the larvae have left the food plant and are looking for somewhere to pupate, and they'll wander quite long distances sometimes and they'll turn up on people's yards. And people get startled because they are a large caterpillar, but they're an absolute beautiful moth. Yet another. I can't go on about moths enough. Just look at that. The old elephant hawks are certainly an impressive species. There's now 4 coming. 2 are on the wall just at the back here. Then there's the one that's just decided to have a bit of a flutter. And moths continue to come in. Now here's another moth that's one of those that's sneaked in. This is a broad-barred white. One of those that's similar to coronet and marbled coronet. I'm just checking the walls to see what had sneaked in. And this is one of them. That and a light brown apple moth, which I won't bore you with. Well, it's just approaching 1:45, and I've got several of these beautiful elephant hawk moths surrounding the trap here. It's been a good couple of hours. And as is usual, something that I've always done, don't like to trap all night. The moths have still got some darkness in which to disperse and go about their nightly business. I don't like to keep a trap unattended all night for 2 reasons. One, next door's cat will have a field day with the likes of this elephant hawk moth here. And 2, the local sparrows will also have a field day if you're not out here to empty the trap at the crack of dawn before they get up. I'm quite happy with just a couple of hours trapping. It keeps the enthusiasm I've always found to want to keep trapping. Hopefully, one night this year, maybe a rarer hawk moth than this will grace the trap and grace this little terraced garden in Market Warsop. Who knows what these southerly winds that we're experiencing at the moment will bring in. In the meantime, I'm quite happy getting 3 or 4 of these to the trap. These are, as I call them, a stonker of a moth.